Hey guys, how's it going? All right. Apparently, George's lawyers have released a bunch of motions that came out, and they were posted on George's defense website. So basically, what George is asking for is any information that they have regarding that the identity of the voices. And according to this document, they're concerned with witness 11's call to 911 and to identify what, if any, opinion that person has reached regarding the identity of the person screaming for help. So number one, it's giving the history of what happened, and they're saying in the background of the call you can hear the distressed voice crying out for help. The crying for help continued for 40 seconds until a gunshot is heard. Mr. Zimmerman told the first responding officer, Tim Smith, that he was crying out for help, but no one came to help. Later, witness 6 told Sanford police that the person, later identified as George Zimmerman, was lying on his back and being hit by the person later identified as Trayvon Martin when witness 6 heard the cries for help. Several individuals related to Trayvon and to George have been identified in early discovery exhibits as having heard the call and having reached the opinion as to the identity of the person crying out for help. In the 9th supplemental discovery exhibit filed in November, a FBI report identifies 2 neighbors of Mr. Zimmerman who say they were able to identify the voice to the 911 call as that of George Zimmerman. Number 3, identification of the voice crying for help in the background of witness 11's 911 call will be an important issue in this case. Depending on whether one believes the person in distress is George or Trayvon, may affect the entire view of the case and may shape how the rest of the testimony and forensic evidence is evaluated. And, of course, the last sentence is really important. It says the voice identification evidence alone could be significant enough to influence the court's finding as to self-defense immunity hearing or affect the jury's verdict at trial. So it's very important that we identify the voice. And, we've been talking about this for a long time on YouTube, and I believe most people, even people that support Trayvon, now have come to the conclusion that the voice was indeed George Zimmerman. Some of them will deny that and argue against it, but very few. And of course, those people, no matter what we say or no matter what evidence comes out, that it's not going to matter. They've made up their mind. And number 4 says there are several people on the state's discovery exhibits who are familiar with either George's voice or Trayvon's voice, yet no reports have been provided indicating whether they were asked if they could identify the voice on the recording. There were also people known to the state but not yet disclosed in discovery exhibits who are familiar with George's voice and Trayvon's voice who heard the 911 call, and they claim to be able to identify the voice crying out for help. Rule 3.220, Florida Rules for Criminal Procedure, and Brady v. Maryland, 1963, require the state to disclose the name, address, and statement of any witness claiming personal knowledge of either Mr. Martin's or Mr. Zimmerman's voice who have been asked to identify the voice in a 911 tape, regardless of whether they have identified it as that of George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, or have been unable to identify it. So they want to know the addresses. They want to be able to talk to these people, ask them questions. They basically just want to verify whose voice that was on the tape. Of course, we all know, at least people who support George know that that was George's voice. I mean, it's pretty clear that there's no way that that could be Trayvon's voice. Just no way at all. Just totally sounds like George. So, even the police, the people that were charged with investigating it, had come to that conclusion. And apparently they did come to that conclusion because here in this sentence it said that law enforcement or some from other sources who claimed to be able to identify the voice. But they weren't, this hasn't been discovered yet. They haven't given it to the defense. Why wouldn't they give the defense information concerning the identity of the voice? Because they believe that when George is identified as the person crying for help, that'll be the end of the case. It will be a dead case, and they know it. I don't know. I can't even imagine why they would be dragging this out like this when they know it's going to be George will be identified as the person crying out for help, and the judge will eventually release George and drop this case completely. So basically, that was why I was making this tape, just to point out that O'Mara definitely has evidence and witnesses that will prove that George was the one screaming. And beyond that, we know that they told us they were going to be releasing samples of Trayvon's voice so that we could compare them, but that hasn't been done also, which means that they've already checked the voice, they've already run it through the machine, and they've proven that absolutely under no possibility could it be Trayvon's voice, that it was George's voice. So good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.